In the grand tapestry of history, few rulers stand as tall and mysterious as Elizabeth I of England. To her subjects, she was Gloriana, the radiant Virgin Queen, protector of her realm. To her enemies, she was a heretic, a usurper, and a dangerous woman who dared to defy the world's greatest powers. But beneath the dazzling portraits, the triumphant speeches, and the golden age of her reign, there lies a story of fear, betrayal, loneliness, and sacrifice. A story of a woman who refused to be defined by men, yet lived in a world where every man wanted to control her. This is not just the story of a queen. It is the tale of a survivor. A woman who carried the scars of childhood trauma, who mastered the art of deception, and who turned her very life into a weapon of power. Tonight, we uncover the secrets of Elizabeth I, the queen who never married, the monarch who ruled alone, and the woman who built an empire on a foundation of mystery. Elizabeth was born in 1533, the daughter of King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. From the moment she entered the world, she was a disappointment. Her father had prayed for a son to secure the Tudor dynasty. Instead, he received a daughter, tiny, red-haired, and fragile. At first, Henry VIII seemed proud. But when Anne Boleyn failed to produce a male heir, his pride turned to rage. Soon, Elizabeth's mother was accused of treason, adultery, and incest. In a shocking spectacle, Anne Boleyn was executed by sword when Elizabeth was just 2 years old. Imagine that, the little princess, suddenly branded the daughter of a disgraced queen, declared illegitimate, stripped of her royal title, and forced to grow up in fear. Elizabeth's childhood was never safe. She watched stepmothers come and go. Some divorced, some banished, and one, Catherine Howard, executed just like her mother. The lesson was clear. In this royal court, women's lives were disposable. But Elizabeth was not like other children. Even as a girl, she showed a sharp mind, a talent for languages, and a deep ability to read people. She learned early that survival meant silence, caution, and patience. As Elizabeth grew older, danger followed her like a shadow. Her father, Henry VIII, died in 1547, leaving behind a fractured kingdom. Elizabeth's young half-brother, Edward VI, ascended the throne, but his reign was short-lived. After his death, England plunged into chaos. When her Catholic half-sister, Mary Tudor, seized power, Elizabeth's very existence became a threat. Mary, known to history as Bloody Mary, feared Elizabeth as a rival claimant. After all, Elizabeth was young, Protestant, and popular with the people. Then came whispers, accusations that Elizabeth was plotting treason. She was dragged from her home, taken to the Tower of London, and locked within its cold, stone walls, the very fortress where her mother had awaited execution. Imagine the terror. Elizabeth, only 21 years old, walking through Traitor's Gate, believing she might never leave alive. The tower was a place of death. Every echo of footsteps could mean a guard bringing news of her execution. But Elizabeth played her part to perfection. She denied all charges, pleaded loyalty to her sister, and most importantly, she endured. Weeks stretched into months until finally she was released. Yet the memory of those prison walls would never leave her. It was in that darkness that Elizabeth's iron will was forged. She learned that to survive, she could never let her emotions control her. She must master them, or be destroyed by them. In 1558, everything changed. Mary Tudor died childless, and Elizabeth was crowned Queen of England. The crowds erupted with joy. To many, she was the savior of the realm, the dawn of a new golden age. But Elizabeth knew better. She inherited a kingdom on the edge of collapse, bankrupt, divided by religion, and threatened by powerful enemies like Spain and France. Her advisors pressed her to marry, to produce an heir, to secure the throne. But Elizabeth refused. She declared herself married to England, earning the title of the Virgin Queen. Was it a vow of purity, or a brilliant act of political strategy? By refusing to marry, Elizabeth denied foreign kings power over her. She kept noble families guessing, using the possibility of marriage as a weapon of diplomacy. One day she hinted at marriage with a French prince. The next, she entertained the idea of a Spanish alliance. Elizabeth turned her unmarried status into the ultimate tool of manipulation. She was no longer just a queen. She was a master player in a deadly game of thrones. Yet behind the throne, scandal always followed. Her closest companion was Robert Dudley, a childhood friend and rumored lover. Whispers filled the court that Elizabeth and Dudley were more than friends. But when Dudley's wife was found dead under suspicious circumstances, her neck broken at the bottom of a staircase, the rumors turned poisonous. Many believed Elizabeth had conspired in murder to be with him. Though no evidence was ever proven, the scandal left a permanent stain on her reign. Elizabeth never married Dudley, but their bond would last a lifetime. This was the paradox of the Virgin Queen. A woman who denied marriage, but whose personal life was filled with secrets, passion, and dangerous rumors. Elizabeth's reign was not only defined by intrigue and whispers, but also by fire and war. By the late 16th century, the world's greatest empire was Spain. Its king, Philip II, was determined to bring England back under Catholic control. And to him, Elizabeth was a heretic queen who had no right to sit on the throne. Philip's fury only grew when Elizabeth supported Protestant rebels in the Netherlands and encouraged English privateers like Sir Francis Drake to raid Spanish ships. These daring sea captains returned to England with gold stolen from Spanish colonies, and Elizabeth welcomed them with open arms. But Spain would not tolerate humiliation forever. In 1588, Philip launched the greatest naval force the world had ever seen, the Spanish Armada. Hundreds of ships, thousands of men, armed with the blessing of the Pope, set sail to invade England. Panic swept through the kingdom. If England fell, Elizabeth's reign would end in blood. But the Virgin Queen refused to hide. She rode to her troops at Tilbury, dressed in shining armor, and delivered one of the most famous speeches in history. "But I have the heart and stomach of a king. And of a king of England too." The soldiers erupted with cheers. Elizabeth had transformed fear into fire. Then fate played its hand. The Armada was scattered by English fireships, battered by storms and forced into retreat. The mighty Spanish fleet was shattered. Elizabeth had defied the most powerful empire in the world. The victory of 1588 was not just a military triumph. It was the moment Elizabeth's legend was sealed. Part 6. Plots, Betrayals, and the Death of a Queen. But even as she celebrated victory, enemies lurked in the shadows. For years, Catholic conspirators plotted to assassinate Elizabeth and replace her with her cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary had fled to England seeking Elizabeth's protection, but instead became her prisoner. For nearly 20 years, Mary lived in captivity, writing secret letters, hoping for rescue. But each letter carried danger. In 1586, one of her messages was intercepted, revealing her involvement in a plot to assassinate Elizabeth. The evidence was undeniable. The cousin she had once protected was now a mortal threat. Elizabeth agonized over the decision. She delayed for months, torn between mercy and survival. But at last her hand was forced. In 1587, Mary was executed. It was an act that haunted Elizabeth for the rest of her life. The death of a queen at the hands of another queen cast a long, bloody shadow over her reign. As the years passed, Elizabeth's image became as important as her policies. She cultivated the persona of the Virgin Queen, untouchable, almost divine. Portraits showed her face unnaturally smooth, forever young, wrapped in jewels and gowns that sparkled like the sun. Courtiers were forbidden to mention her aging. She was no longer just a woman. She was a symbol, England itself. But behind the mask, time was cruel. Her hair fell out. Her teeth decayed. She painted her face with layers of white lead makeup, which slowly poisoned her. Yet Elizabeth never allowed weakness to show. Even in her final years, she clung to the throne with iron will. She had outlived all her enemies, all her suitors, even most of her closest allies. She was alone, yet undefeated. In 1603, after 45 years on the throne, Elizabeth I drew her final breath. The Virgin Queen was dead. She left no husband, no children, no heir of her own blood. The Tudor dynasty ended with her. But her legacy? It was eternal. She had turned a bankrupt, divided kingdom into a world power. She had inspired poets like Shakespeare, explorers like Drake, and generations of Englishmen who saw in her the spirit of a nation. Elizabeth was not perfect. She was ruthless when she needed to be. She used love as a weapon, power as a mask, and secrecy as her greatest defense. But above all, she was a survivor. From the moment she was born, she lived under the shadow of death. And yet she endured, outliving every threat, every betrayal, every storm. She became the queen who needed no king. The woman who turned her solitude into strength. The Virgin Queen, forever cloaked in mystery, forever untouchable. And so, the story of Elizabeth I is not simply the tale of a monarch. It is the story of survival against impossible odds. The story of a woman who defied her world's expectations, and reshaped history itself. She was England's brightest flame, and like all flames, she burned alone.